Okay, can you all hear me? Okay, I'm Margot Cox. There may be a few people here who don't know me. I work with Sally in private practice for years in the Memorial System. I first encountered the unique and indomitable Sally Downey at UT Houston Herman Hospital, where she was a pediatric resident and I was a newly minted neonatology attending, just moved to Texas from the East Coast. I got to know Sally best, however, during her subsequent years as a neo fellow in the early to mid 80s, the pre-Jurassic era of neonatology. She was that fellow with whom all the attendings wanted to be on call when the NICU was hopping, and as we said, when L&D was dropping. When Sally was on, there was no question that the work would be done, the babies would be tucked in, but more importantly, the families would be cared for too. Even back then, as a young doctor in training, Sally loved to talk and to comfort and to teach and to talk some more. In so doing, she included and educated the families in the NICU process and in the decision pathways used in caring for their critically ill infants. She loved the hands-on, at the bedside, caring part of medicine, not so much the research part that she was supposed to be doing as a fellow. And she did the bedside medicine part extremely well. After fellowship, Sally stayed on at UT as a junior attending for a year, but her heart was not in academic medicine. Like yesterday, I remember the day in 1987 that she came into my office at UT, musing about loving the babies, but not the academia, about maybe leaving UT and going into private practice at some point. She knew I'd been having some of the same thoughts too. Why not private practice together, she said. You know, we really could do it. Really we could, she said. You want to? By the end of an hour of egging each other on, the decision was made. Whoa, a bit crazy? More than a bit. Certainly not a well thought out decision. Naive? Yes, indeed. Perhaps that decision was the most unresearched, spur of the moment decisions in either of our lives up to that point. Houston Neonatology Associates, our private practice, was born that day on a lark. And it turned out to be the best decision we ever made. I hope you guys would agree. Working with Sally in private practice for almost 20 years was the most fulfilling medical work of my life, before and after. Two more different women you could not find on this planet. But Sally's and my styles of medical care, of interacting with families, and of working with our beloved NICU staff at all the hospitals, our styles fit together like pieces of a well-engineered puzzle. We set our private practice sites here and at the other Memorial hospitals outside the Texas Medical Center, partly because some of their nurseries needed upgrading and expanding, but mostly because the CEO at Memorial, Ed Myers, gave us some sorely needed startup money, along with lots of free advice. We were newbies and very inexperienced at this business part of medicine. Memorial Northwest and Memorial Fort Bend, now Sugar Land, barely had functioning level 1 nurseries at the time. The first time Sally and I stepped in the hospital, the nursery at Memorial Northwest, we noticed they had one bottle of Dextro sticks on the shelf. Those of you who are old will remember that's the old way we used to check babies' glucose levels. But the nurses said they didn't use them. They didn't know how. And that was good because we looked at the bottle and it was long expired. The teaching learning curve there was steep for us and for the staff, but it was oh so rewarding to grow their level 2+ nursery. Sally had found her niche and her passion. Memorial Fort Bend, a small backcountry one-story hospital with the look of 4 garages cobbled together at that time, had 1 baby warmer and 1 nurse who could put in an IV. That nurse, believe it or not, came in all hours of the night and day if we needed an IV and a baby. She came from home. Then Sally learned to put in her infamous saphenous lines, taught some nurses how to do it, and we were off to a level 2 nursery at Fort Bend. Here, Memorial Southwest was way ahead of the curve at the time. They had a level 2, maybe a little plus. They had a couple neonatologists on staff. So the building program here was a joint effort. And look what we wrought, all of us together. The words that come to mind when I think of this time working with Sally are long hours, nuts, adventure, never dull, challenging, exhausting, rewarding, frustrating, fun, teaching, learning, always something new. We worked long and hard hours at the bedside. Sally, the quintessential clinical doctor, loved it. I'm going to admit here today one of my grave and most disappointing failures in life. I could not, despite arduous effort on my part and that of my daughters too, I could not break Sally of her grungy scrubs and old sneakers habit. I tried. I took her clothes shopping. No luck. Shoe shopping, that was worse. Then I tried catalog shopping for clothes. Nope. Okay, shopping for new, snazzy, great colored scrubs. No. I even bought her some tall scrubs. No deal. Sally was Sally, and that's why we love her. It was an honor and a privilege to practice medicine along with Sally Downey. She has left quite a professional legacy. Children and families well cared for, nurses, physicians, and other medical care teams or team members supported and well trained, and NICUs that provide cutting edge, conscientious, compassionate medical care to babies and to their families. She has left a mark on so many hearts. Sally, you are missed wherever you are. You are loved. You are appreciated more than you will ever know. Godspeed, my dear friend.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany Burnett. This is Natasha Likens. We are the A team over at Northwest. Well, I should say the old original one, and not the latest one. You know, today is today and the day was a sad day, just thinking of, losing Dr. Downey. But so I love that we are celebrating her and her accomplishments and just what she's all done for all of us. This morning, just a little addition to my speech, one of our A-team members had passed away this morning. And it was awful. She was going to come today, and anyway, so.
Now she's with her.
Yeah, and I could just hear Dr. Downey say, "What the hell are you doing here? You're supposed to be at my celebration and not here visiting me." And I could just, hear her. That those two are the most humorous people and just did everything wonderfully. And when things happen like this, we never understand why. We just have to figure that God has a plan and he's going to get us through it. And that when we leave this earth, it doesn't matter your status, the car you drive, what it just matters the kind of person that you were and the people that you bless in your life. Dr. Downey definitely made her mark on the earth and in her life. Dr. Downey, AKA Sister Sally, as I called her. We always joked and said I was her favorite. Although I really was. We were all the A team in her eyes. I called her Sister Sally because one day, silly as it was, that we were just talking about the Brady Bunch. How we talked about the Brady Bunch, I have no idea, but we were talking about the different nurses. Well, Lori, she's Marcia, and I was Jan, because Marcia. And then, but she didn't want to be Alice, and she didn't want to be the mom. She wanted to be the sister. I said, okay, well, then you're Sister Sally. So that's kind of how that started. I started as a brand new nurse, and like Dr. Cox was saying, I got there in 1999, but to me, that was the beginning, and we got to grow the new unit of, the latest unit. I was a new nurse, and a lot of nurses were intimidated by her. And I was like, she's not scary. And so her and Dr. Cox were the first dynamic duo. Their relationship and the way that they treated and loved the nurses was incredible. And I mean, we can't even thank you. Where'd you go, Dr. Cox? There you are. That you guys just took us under your wings and just taught us everything. And literally, I know this sounds crazy, but I didn't go through an official training program. It was one night, one of the nurses said, hey, I need a NICU nurse. Can you do this? Great. This is what you do. And so Dr. Downey, Dr. Cox, like everything that I knew and, from the 18 was from just kind of throwing me in there. Then when Dr. Cox left, we were so incredibly sad. And then there came fabulous Dr. Eason as well. And then they became the new dynamic duo. It's just incredible how those two sets of women just, like she said, was different, but the same in the way that they did things and the way that they loved us. That will never be forgotten. All three incredible human beings who loved us and treated us like family. They trusted us, believed in us. Dr. Downey was one of our best friends. My oldest son is high functioning autistic. My other two kids had horrible health issues. So she was always the ear. I would call her. We'd cry on each other's shoulders. She was always there. We did our work, of course. We did work, but she always took the time to know us as people, not just the nurse that worked there. All the doctors were like that. Dr. Downey was our best friend, our therapist, our shoulder to cry on, our teacher, our sister, someone to laugh and cry with, our mentor, and the list goes on. She went through our marriages, divorces, remarriages, unthinkable times, health issues. She went over and beyond. Just a few examples. One of our other 18 nurses was her son passed away as a teenager. She was with them at the hospital. She was with them everywhere to the very last moment. She gave them hope. She shared medical knowledge and loved on them. She was there when we'd cry or laugh about whatever was happening in our lives. When I had my baby, she was my pediatrician because I only wanted the very best. But she's, that wasn't in her job description, but she did it anyways. She was always there helping with my kids and our health issues. We talked about kids and whatever was going on with both of our lives. One time I brought my daughter up there to the nursery. She was a year old and she was a horrible stick and we had to draw her blood. I told her I was going to do it. She said, no, I'm going to do it. I said, no, I'm going to stick her. She said, no, you're not. She's your kid. You're not going to stick her. Yes, I am. Anyway, so she stuck her. She gave her one of the giraffes from the Children's Hospital. Mackenzie carried that giraffe around everywhere, to every surgery, every test at home and outside. She watched our kids grow and was an important event in our kids and birthday parties both ways. When I married my current husband, she told me that I better be a good wife and let him watch his sports, especially baseball. I told her I loved baseball, and so it's all good. She also told me not to get married on an odd date, as she does not like those odd numbers. I told her that I got married the first time on an even number, and that did not work out. So I'm going to have to pick an odd number. So much, again, she did come to my wedding. I was married to my husband on September 13th, 2003. And she, she very much did not like that. She also insisted that Sherry got married on 10/10/2010. So she did. Dr. Downey has fought for us, loved us, always made us feel better. She was selfless. She always thought about others. I left nursing in 2016, and even after I left, we still kept in touch. When life was happening, good or bad, she was always one I called on, and she always knew that she could talk to me and I could talk to her. Throughout her battle of cancer, I talked to her often and visited as much as I could until COVID came, but I still called her. And no matter how she was feeling, she would always say, well, you know, Tiffany, it's just another infection. I'll be out of here soon. I'm like, okay. And then I would say one time, I said, you know what, you're wheezing. And she says, no, if I just don't talk about it, then it's not happening. She was so hopeful that the second treatment was going to work. I told her, I said that. She just said, you know, Tiffany, the other nurse said that. And if I don't say it out loud, she said, it's going to be okay. I told her I'm going to pray it away and claim it gone. She had more life to live and people who loved her. She said she'll be okay. She was always so positive, always talked about her sweet kids, Tara, Jason, Christine, and Marcus. She loved bringing Tara and Jason to see us in the nursery. Terry loved hanging out with us since she was little. We always loved hearing about her kids' stories and accomplishments. Her kids were her number one, no doubt about that. They were her life. Even though they didn't really know us, we knew all about them. Dr. Downey would call me every year and say, it's that time again, Tara wants her makeup. And as I was the Mary Kay makeup dealer, LOL, I would always make it extra special and over the top. And I always promised her that Tara would continue to get that gift until I'm not here. She fought so hard for those 2+ years. Her biggest concerns as we talked were her kids. She just wanted to make sure that all her kids were okay. I told her that her kids will be very okay because of the super incredible mom that she was and the things that they taught, and not only what she taught us, but what they caught. She taught them to work hard, play hard, to think, to listen, and to most of all love. She shared her love for cooking for her friends. She'd bake cookies every year and yummy recipes, and now Tara has taken on that love for cooking. Dr. Downey always did things with a smile, well, sometimes a little cussing. I always told her to be nice, stop being cranky, and she would say, okay, fine. And she always knew how to lighten things up. She knew all was going to be okay and that her A-team was there with her. Even at the end, when Natasha and I spent time with her, she joked and laughed and asked us about our kids' name and all. She was so selfless, just thinking of us and not even that she was dying. Although she was going through all that she was going through, she still was selfless and thought of others. I could go on and on, literally. Dr. Downey, Sister Sally, you will never be forgotten. I will treasure our memories and our friendship forever. There will never be a family like the family we had at Northwest. You were like no other. I find myself wanting to pick up the phone and call you. I know she's up in heaven, dancing, eating Mexican, watching baseball, and mostly watching down on all of us, and now hanging out with Amy. Our angel in heaven, we love you, Sister Sally.
Okay, I'm Natasha. I've known Dr. Downey for 20+ years. I started working with her at Northwest in 1997, I believe, 1997. So long time, a lot of years with Dr. Cox and Dr. Downey. Dr. Downey has always been more than one of the greatest and most down-to-earth neonatologists around that I know. She was a great friend, a confidant, a teacher, a counselor, a therapist, like Tiffany said, to all of us. Like Tiffany said, she was with us through weddings, births, deaths, and divorces, and not just with us in the nursery and the NICU with that. She actually attended the births, attended the weddings. My divorce, like many divorces in this world, was rough. But she was always there, giving me advice and strength and helping me through it. She even had a garage sale for me, a 2-day-long garage sale at her house for me. All the nurses donated items to the garage sale, and we raised over $3,000 to help me pay for my lawyer fees. Okay. She offered her house to me and my kids as a safe place for me to go and stay. She always had my back. We always said we could write a book at Northwest with all the events and all the drama that we had. We could definitely write a book. And we all had a chapter. We had more than one chapter for sure. We were family, and I've always cherished those days. I think about Dr. Downey every time I get called to delivery, every time I start an IV, do an LP, or get ready to put lines in. She always made a stressful situation calm, even though she was yelling and throwing things around and asking, where's my glasses? I need my glasses. Now I'm wearing glasses. We used to be her eyes, but now I have to wear glasses. We all knew what she wanted and how to make her calm and how to make things fun. She hated odd numbers, except the number 5. To date, if Ania orders IV fluids at 3.3 cc's an hour, I just cringe. Or PO feeds at 29 cc's. That would never happen. That would never happen. Dr. Downey would always talk about retirement. How many more years she had. She would be counting the days in the NICU. She counted years and then was down to counting, you know, the days. What she was going to do and how much money she was going to have when she retired. She always wanted to go to Amsterdam, and she couldn't wait to go to Amsterdam to smoke a big fatty. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I hope she's looking down at us right now with one in her hand. Another great memory was a Terrace Sweet 16 party. She rented a decked out limo for all the kids. And when she got back, she said, adult ride. And we all piled in with our drinks, our adult beverages, and we all laughed and had so much fun. Dr. Downey will never be forgotten. We will be telling stories about her for years to come. She was one amazing woman. Now we have a lot of stories that people in the NICU have wrote and doctors have wrote about her, just little stories. This story comes from Samantha. She says one of her stories was she was in the NICU eating her pen. She always loved to chew on her pen cap. I was like, Dr. Downey, would you like some gum or something else to chew on besides your pen cap? She looked at me and said, ah, hell no. I like chewing this. And went on chewing her pen cap. When she started eating only salads, she would come into the NICU with her salad from the cafeteria and tell me she gets through this by imagining it's her Big Mac. I will love her forever. But I have to add something here. Not to mention, would she only bring her salad into the nursery? She would weigh it on the diaper scale. Yes. She was something else. She would always take my computer instead of sitting at the doctor's computer. She never sat at the doctor's computer that we had assigned for the doctors to sit at. She always sat with us nurses. Mm-hmm. And you have to talk about her always wearing her Crocs, like she said about those scrubs and the shoes. She'd wear those dang Crocs and those blue scrubs wherever, or green scrubs wherever she went. Another thing about Dr. Downey is having to wait around for C-sections that took so long. She would get called in for a C-section. She'd be like, come on, I've been here already for 30 minutes or an hour. Like, what are they doing? Like, you shouldn't have called me yet. You should have waited. Or calling her to tell her that a baby with Lyme's had a bad pressure reading and she wanted you to fix it. Or you attend a C-section at change of shift and have to do chest compressions. And when she asks you what the APGARs are, she's not happy with those scores and lets you know about it. She never held anything back. That's why we love her. She was honest and sincere. This is from Melissa. What? Why haven't you started the IV yet? Got the labs drawn, gotten the x-ray. Why are you calling me then? This is actually from Amy, the one that passed this morning. You'll have to mention her disdain for odd numbers, that she attended all our births and our weddings. She actually wrote this last night and she passed away this morning. This is crazy.
Like 2 hours before.
Yeah. She attended all our births and our weddings. She was there for all the hurricane bunkering-ins and all the fun pool parties that she had at her house. Karen says, Dr. Downey was not only an amazing doctor to work with, but also a wonderful friend to be with outside work. Forever in my memories. Love Karen. This is from Bonnie. And Bonnie's the one that Tiffany talked about that her son had passed away. My favorite story is a time when she asked me to order Mexican food for Nurses Day. I said, how about Tony's Mexican food? Had not heard of it. I told her how good it was because she loved cheese enchiladas. I said, can we get a variety of things? She said, okay, like what? Long story short, I ordered some chicken enchiladas, some rice, beans, and some mole enchiladas. Mole sauce is a kind of sweet and spicy sauce, and I knew how picky she was. She made that weird face, took a bite, and said, wow, that's pretty good. I laughed so hard because I was so afraid that she wouldn't like it. She was always commenting on our lunches and what I would bring to work. What's that green stuff you have on that? I knew she was hungry, but she would never take time to eat because of her busy schedule. She would say, I don't have time right now. I got to go. I'll grab something later. She was, wow, I'll sure miss her. She was one of a kind.
She called those mole tacos poopy tacos.
Tacos.
And she would never eat. I said, you got to eat. Unless we're eating queso, she'd steal our queso.
Yeah, queso on the chips. This is from Melissa. All that comes to mind right now is that she nearly started World War III between a couple with an explanation of ABO incompatibility and blood types. The dad was not the dad. She goes, you can't read that out there. She said, you can't read that. LOL. I did love, however, the way she always, and I love this too, the way she always explained things to the parents. She was very down to earth and very used layman's terms all the time, even to the nurses explaining like the path of a baby or what was going on with the baby, always simplifying things and easing people's fears. That was for sure. This is from Sherry.
Last one, I think. Hope you'll be here all day.
One of my best memories of Dr. Danny is her bugging me about when I was going to get married. And I told her if she found a cool date, and Tiffany kind of mentioned this, if she found a cool date that was on a weekend, I would do it. Well, I didn't know she was actually on a mission to get me hitched. She found the date, 10-10-10, and it fell on a Sunday. And 11 years later, here I am with my soulmate. I have her to thank for that. No, really, I do have to thank you for that. LOL. It took a long time to earn her respect as a true NICU nurse. And after hearing, where's Natasha? Get her to start that IV. I can't find her anywhere. I finally earned the privilege of number 1, calling her Sally, and number 2, hearing, get Sherry, where is she? I knew I had earned the rite of passage as an NICU nurse in her eyes, and that still means the world to me today. Yeah. And now I have some more that were emailed to Dr. Eason. This is from Carla. It says, Sally always wore scrubs and almost always a smile. Her face always revealed how she felt. A puzzled look, a roll of the eyes spoke volumes. She did not have a poker face. Sally would always show up wearing scrubs, even on her day off. She had a sense of humor and was terrible with computers. Sally had many stories about crazy deliveries and memorable medical cases. She was the queen of the Northwest Special. She was a wealth of knowledge, and her experience helped her to have a clear focus on what was really important and relevant when taking care of a challenging baby. Sally loved baseball. She loved her family fiercely and always shared stories about them. Sally is missed not only as a colleague, but as a friend. It was an honor to know her and learn from her.
Yeah, anytime there was a baseball game, she would say, is this a serious thing? Or can I like wait till
That way.
I was like, we'll do what we can do. Okay, so tell me when you really need me.
Another story. I met Sally. This is from Dr. Parentoni. I met Sally over lunch when our respective practices joined Mednax in the mid-90s and liked her right away. She struck me as a very practical individual with a good sense of humor. We did not know then that I would end up joining her practice several years later. Sally always had time to listen and offer great advice, no matter how busy she might have been. Sally always had a way of facing challenge, dissipating even the most stressful situations and making things right. Sally always had your back, one of the smartest and most accomplished neonatologists I've ever met, yet so humble. Sally, it's been a privilege to have known you and worked with you all these years. Your legacy will live on in each and every one of us. You'll never be forgotten. Hector Parentoni. And one more. All right. Sally was a phenomenal person. She was a wealth of knowledge and was always willing to teach. My favorite memory of her was one night I had to take a UVC out that she had placed. She did it so well. It took me 30 minutes to loosen the sutures. I was telling her how impressive it was. She told me back then, they didn't suture them in the cord. They would let the cord do its job and close around the sutures, ultimately securing them. She was a pillar in this group. Sincerely, Savannah Sutherland, nurse practitioner. Thank you.
Golly, if that didn't make me feel like 100 years old, just a lot. So my name's Deborah Pickett, and I was a NICU nurse before actually Sally Margot came into our lives. So I want to know for sure that all the stories that I'm told have been told to me, and I'm just the spokesperson or the crazy person that said that I would do this. The only thing is that all my notes, I can pretty well tear up because of everything that Margot said and that you guys said. So I'm going to be a little bit briefer than I originally were. So I might have to check my notes. So I actually came whenever people always talk about the old nursery. Well, I came when it was the old nursery that we were, you know, in a fish pond. Everybody was looking at us and very different. But one of my first memories is going to labor and delivery. And even though I'd been to labor and delivery multiple times, I still felt, you know, a little intimidated. And we went from the 5th floor to the 2nd floor because labor and delivery was on 2. So, you know, I'd be running down the stairs thinking of my calculations for NRP, out of breath. You had to run down a long hallway with red tape on it so you knew where you were going because it was such a mouse maze down there. And I'd walk in and she'd be there, you know, her leg up on the chair, waiting for us to get in there. And we'd go in there and I would do the first 30 seconds of NRP in 2.2 seconds. I mean, I was trying to get it done real fast. And she just looked at me and she said, "Let the baby breathe." Oh, okay. So then you go and you proceed to, you had to, no patency, so you had to suction down all the way to the back of the throat through the nose. You had to go down, deep suction. Of course, then they don't breathe. Then their heart rate goes down. So she taught me a lot about sitting back and being, you know, respectful to the birth process. A lot of babies, all they need is a chance to breathe and they'll be fine. So not only professionally teaching all the nurses that she was around for, I bet you it's in the hundreds whenever it comes to staff that were exposed to her. She had a flair, you know, all her own, but at the same time, as others have said, the things that we talk about that are a little bit maybe unprofessional that we dealt with her with the tennis shoes and green scrubs and the Crocs and please, Sally, don't smoke a cigarette with the window up on the way in. Just, you know, different conversations that we would have. It turned into a relaxed, patient, knowledgeable position when she was talking to families. And they knew that that was her giving her all. And so in the back, we had all of our laughs of the things that would happen, but her families always knew. And some of my stories may be a little bit inappropriate. Oh, and you also, I'm trying to keep them as even keel as possible, but also remember a lot of the things that we did for NRP years ago was very different. So it was standard practice at that time to do the deep suction, things we wouldn't think about doing today. So I think that one of the terms or the quotes that I think about her during that time was "Don't sweat the small stuff," because she didn't want to be all excited about things that were not important. Now, I thought she was a fellow, but anyway, she was, and Dr. Cox were kind of moonlighting when we had one neonatologist who was not in the unit all the time. And Dr. Knapp was a good teacher and, you know, we all respected her, but when they came in and I was working night shift, it was like, oh shit, I gotta call Dr. Downey. I'm gonna wake her up. She's gonna have to run in here, run through stop signs, go through stop lights, just trying to make it in to this delivery. So you didn't call her unless you were absolutely sure. But then once you had a few years under your belt with her, she'd just say, do I need to come right now? Can I drive slow? I wasn't gonna do that because she would be in her little car running around. So there are nurses that were here much before I came into the NICU, but we all left with the same joy and smile at all of her little idiosyncrasies. Let's see, oh, can't do that very well. Damn mask on. Okay. So she did. She shared the good, bad, and the ugly with all the nurses that she worked with. But to her family, she still delivered it in the same way that we knew that was, you know, a benefit for them and a of telling the truth. I actually remember before she had babies that Kristen and Marcus would come in. She'd be doing weekend call, and I'd be out there coloring with them or trying to keep them occupied while she made her rounds. And then, you know, wanting to have a baby, she wanted to have a baby so bad. And then she had her babies come into her life. And some of that was actually helped to be orchestrated through one of our nurses that's been here for a long time. So I know she was ever, especially with Jason, that she got to be the mother to him. So I'm so glad to see that it is listed as it should be, that she has, you know, the daughters and the sons from that different time period. But I think her style, you might want to call flower child, hippie, so kind of appropriate with Amsterdam, might go along with that. But, you know, we loved her just the same. Whenever she entered the room, she had it wasn't necessarily a boisterous, but she had a commanding presence whenever you walked in. And then the very first thing is that, as Jackie, the respiratory therapist, was saying, she would walk in and she'd say, that needs to be fixed, before she even got over to the baby doing anything. And she was going, why? Well, because she was on 33% oxygen. No, fix it. You need to just fix it. So she would go down to 32. That didn't work. She'd go up to 34. That didn't work. And go back to 33. No, she wasn't having any of it. So then she'd say, well, let me have your stethoscope. So we all almost needed to have a surrogate for that, because every bedside she went to, she had to borrow the stethoscope, and she wanted those even and odd numbers, and IV rates and O2 rates, just any numbers that she had to make, they had to be even. Let's see. That later, we've already talked about that, so I don't want to repeat. Any of these patients. One time, several years ago, she lost a bunch of weight. She had started running. So she came into the NICU and she called my office. Said, come down to the call room. And I went in there and the bed was filled with clothes. And she comes out and she says, come here. She says, what do I want to put together first? She had gone out on a shopping spree. Now, understanding her thin scrubs and her old shoes and all that, this person came in with clothes. Does this match? Is this a cute outfit? And she twirled around like she was a 3-year-old. And I can't help but that is going to be my last memory of her, is her strolling around in those new clothes. Did I ever see her in them? No. Our unit was very well known for parties, retirement parties, going away parties, baby showers, just anytime, any excuse to have a party, we were going to have one. For, I believe it was her 40th, we put her in a wheelchair with crutches. I gave her dead flowers. She was so over the hill. Took her the big loop around labor and delivery and back around to the nursery. And not too far, maybe even the same day, we also celebrated Dr. Cox, and she was equally made to feel like she had a stretcher. Let's just put it that way. So then there was a 90th birthday for Bob, who was our volunteer forever until he could no longer volunteer. And he would go to the lab, he'd fold clothes, you know, towels and things like that. But mostly he was just a smile and a kind word to everybody. So everybody loved him. And at the very last minute, I'll tell you, the 5th floor had a mother who had discharged, and she had left her gown, her kind of fancy gown. Letty comes up with a big box from a I think it was a wash machine, but I'm not for sure, and some makeup. Sylvie had the makeup ready. And they get Sally dressed in this gown, obviously on the outside of her scrubs, and do her makeup all up. Sylvie did her right by that. Letty brings in her box. And one of the things they did to the striptease song was Sally bursting out of this box and being for Bob, you know, he's 90. No, it was a fond memory from that. she attended my retirement party because she was that person who remembered dates, who made an effort, you know, to be able to be there. And so, you know, you're really thankful for those times. But then came the year of doctor physician ordering. Sally and computers do not go in the same sentence, except at her memorial, we can say that. She wanted no part of it. She wanted us to do it. She didn't want to sit in the right chair or the right computer. Look up my labs for me, do this. So, but the one thing is, poor Mary Baker was the one who was teaching the physicians how to do this physician ordering. And so every time Mary would walk in with her laptop and walk towards Sally, Sally would say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And so I'm not for sure whether it was Mary or whether it was Dr. Downey who did the cross when Mary walked in. So she really got the brunt of the computer age. And so Mary, who was it? Was it you or her that did the sign of the cross at the same time? Okay. I think that one of the phrases that I think she owns up to is, don't write your name in the sand. The waves are just going to wash it away. Don't write your name in the sky. The wind will just blow it away. Write your name in people's hearts and who comes into your life, and that's what will always stay. And also with this statement, your life is made by 2 dates. If you go to the cemetery, you look, it's the day you're born, the day you died. But a dash in the middle is what you need to make sure and focus on, is what is in the middle. And she definitely lived up to those words. So we thank Sally, you know, as a teacher and as a friend, and that she just had her way about her that made her unique. So in other words, her idiosyncrasies is part of her charm, and we shall never forget. Okay, so I think, and all the words saying out of respect for her and to laugh with her and at her, because I know she's laughing, is I think, okay, Mary, where is it? Yeah, we gotta have time for this, is that I think it would only be appropriate if we had the tennis shoes and the scrubs and set them on fire, because they cannot go anywhere else. Somebody might want to get it out.
Okay.
We'll just throw them back here and you can move them over if you need to. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming. It's so wonderful to see so many faces from our past, and all these wonderful things about Sally. You guys were all there and made them come true. So I'm very grateful. So after I give a brief talk, we're going to have a little slideshow, and then we are going to go outside and release some butterflies. Now, I can keep a baby alive, not sure about a butterfly. So let's hope that when we open our envelopes, they're alive. I heard some scratching, which was a little creepy. So they say to be gentle with them. If they need a little help, give them a moment to collect themselves. Okay, so a lot of things have been said about Sally, and oh, I can't see very well. Okay, so, and I want to thank Christine, her daughter, who's here with us today. Her other children are not here because she raised them right, and they are at work. Okay, so Sally Ann Downey was born in Richland, Washington on March 20th, 1955. She was one of 11 children and of 8 sisters. Her father was in the service and they moved often. She graduated from high school in El Paso, Texas. She went to college at Texas Tech and to medical school at UTMB in Galveston, where she graduated in 1981. She completed her pediatric residency and neonatology fellowship at UT Medical School in Houston. Sally joined Dr. Margot Cox, and their practice was one of the first to take neonatology out of the medical center and into the community. Our current practice was founded by Sally with Valerie Moore and Rita McClure. Our success has been built upon Sally's hard work, integrity, and expertise. Sally was unselfish at her core, and she was always willing to sacrifice when others needed help. She taught me that when a colleague asks for help, the answer is always yes. She taught our practice that sometimes everyone needs to have their hand held and that we have to be there for each other. Our practice has weathered a lot over the years, and we have chosen to stay together because of the bonds we have built with respect, loyalty, and compassion. Sally taught us that. Perhaps many of you witnessed that as a young neonatologist, I had a lot of growing up to do. Sally would sit me down and tell me, Betsy, you just can't do that. It was hard for me to believe, but she told me that when she was younger, she was such a bitch. And Margot sat her down and said, Sally, you just can't do that. She told me she listened and she changed. She told me one of her tricks was to still use a pager, because in the time between getting the page and calling back, she could compose herself, take a deep breath, smile, and say, this is Dr. Downey. But Sally wasn't always on her best behavior. She would sometimes get mad and yell at the nurses. I marveled at this because for some reason they never really got upset. I was eager to learn her secret because it seemed that I was always causing the nurses to be upset. So I asked a seasoned nurse why this was. She said that it was probably because at the end of the day, they knew she had their back. Sally was a leader who came from a place of love and kindness, and it created a safe environment where people could make mistakes. Sally was modeling servant leadership way before it was cool. Sally was smart. She was really smart. She was elected Alpha Omega Alpha in medical school, which selects only the brightest students in the class. But her humility could cause you to miss her genius. She taught me to judge others by their successes, not their failures, because the day would come when I wouldn't be able to get the intubation or the line, especially without my readers or trifocals. She frequently called or texted to ask what we thought, even though we clearly didn't have the experience she did. Her willingness to ask for help, even from the whippersnappers, gave us confidence, and it created a standard within our practice. It's okay to not know the answer, but you will be judged harshly if you don't know the answer and you don't ask for help. Perhaps that is partially because we've always had the luxury of being able to ask both Sally and Hector. With the 80 years of neonatology experience between them, if they haven't seen it, it probably hasn't happened yet. The verb foster is defined as to nurture and encourage. Sally loved the role of foster parent, but she fostered all those around her, not just her children. Sally was a dedicated mother of and adopted 4 children, Christine, Tara, Jason, and Marcus. She extended that nurturing by frequently opening her home to people who needed a little help getting back on their feet. When I found myself the single mother of a 1-year-old with no support system and a demanding job that I could not afford to lose, Sally and many of you in this room held me together until I could do it on my own. Sally shared with me her struggles as a single mom with young children and helped me begin to believe that someday I would be okay. She never complained when the best I could do was barely go through the motions. I'm sure my notes were terrible, but she never said a word. She knew that sometimes people just needed you to hold their hand. Neonatology is a job that allows obsessive people the opportunity to be compulsively awesome. Sally was no exception. She remembered every phone number of everyone she ever knew, long after we had forgotten our own phone numbers. She could remember every diagnosis code, ever. Although she had had an amazing mind for numbers, she strongly disliked decimal points. In a world of 0.1 cc's an hour, Sally rounded everything to a whole number. She also hated odd numbers, as has been mentioned, to the point that she would not pull out of her driveway if the time on the clock ended in an odd number. So to mess with her, the day before I would go off of service, I would run the fluids at 13.1 cc's an hour. And in retaliation, she would hide my stapler. Because I got a stapler problem. Okay. On October 1st, 2018, Sally called me and told me that she had cancer. She soon found out that it was stage 4 lung cancer. It felt like a double punch in the gut, especially having lost Charlie to leukemia in 2014. But Sally was tough, tougher than cancer, and she fought hard for 2.5 years. But by the end of 2020, she had been through multiple rounds of sepsis that landed her in the intensive care unit. In early 2021, she developed fungal sepsis. She actually cleared the fungal sepsis, but her body was so weak that it just couldn't fight anymore. The last time I saw her, she had been moved to hospice. As I held her hand, I told her that I had done the math and that she had helped over 250,000 babies and given hope to all of those families, that she had truly saved thousands of lives. I wanted her to know what a difference she had made in the world. Sorry. She's told me that she still wanted to fight, but her body had failed her. She said she felt cold all the time. And in a true Sally fashion, she said, "Betsy, why is that?" I told her I didn't know. As I cried and thanked her for being my friend, she gently fell asleep. She passed away 4 days later, surrounded by her family. One second. Maya Angelou must have been thinking about someone just like Sally when she wrote, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Sally was a once-in-a-lifetime mentor and friend. She made us all feel good, especially when we really needed it. And in celebration of her life, I will leave you with one of my favorite things about Sally. She dreamed of having an 18-wheeler and of being a trucker.